Christian parenting.
Welcome to the Christian Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Steph Thurling. I'm the Executive Director of Christian Parenting, a mom of 3, and I am so glad that you're here. This is a place where you can bring your real self, no matter what that looks like today, and be given the space, resources, and encouragement you need to set aside perfection and grow into the perfectly imperfect parent God made you to be. Guys, I am so excited about our guest today. I just adore her, and I was just really happy that I got to sit down and speak with her. So I'm talking with Abbie Halberstadt, also known as M is for Mama. She is a writer, she's a fitness instructor, former high school Spanish teacher turned current home educator. She's a mom of 10 kids, including 2 sets of identical twins, and the author of the book M is for Mama. And then her newest book, Hard is Not the Same Thing as Bad, releases soon, and you guys can pre-order it now if you want to. There are a lot of things that I love about Abbie, but I really love that she encourages women to dig deep in Christ to meet the challenges of everyday life. And today we cover so many topics about that. We talk about what Christ-like motherhood can look like, how we learn as we experience more and more in motherhood, what parenting stage was the hardest for each of us, and our answers might surprise you. We talk about parenting priorities and sibling relationships. I loved talking with Abbie, and I know you will love what she has to share with us. Hi, Abbie. Welcome to the show. I'm really glad to have you here today.
Hey, Steph. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 really random things that I love about following you on Instagram. I love a lot of things about following you on Instagram, but these are a little more surface level. One is your reels of dancing with your son, who's a teenager. Yes. And I love that he's a teenager and that you guys dance together. They're just really fun to watch. I think it was actually the first... I think like one of them popped up in my Explore feed, and that's how I found you.
Oh, fun. They have so many more people than I had any idea was going to happen, but they're fun for us too. So I'm glad it's working out.
Yeah, no, I love it. And then your home decor and wallpaper. So Abbie and I share a love of patterns and wallpaper. My house is not nearly as fun as yours, but if you love colors and patterns and wallpaper, like you need to go check out her Instagram. Because you wallpapered your microwave.
I did, yes. People ask me daily, what in the world is going on with my microwave? They're like, is that a wrap? Did you paint it? Did you stencil? What did you do? And I'm like, I wallpapered it with traditional wallpaper and paste. And it works great.
I have thought about doing it so many times and I just can't quite get there. So maybe someday.
People do their refrigerators. That's a flatter surface. I mean, bigger area though.
I could start there though. It's a little less intimidating.
Yeah.
Less buttons and things. I don't know. It's really cute. But so once you get to your Instagram, it does not take long to realize that your house is beautiful and it's fun, joyful, and it's full. So tell us about the people who fill your house. And then can you describe your family in like one word or phrase?
I would say my family is a big blessing. That would be my phrase. And I say that. Yes. Yeah. Because I have 10 kids.
You have 10 kids. So what are the ages of your kids?
I have 2-year-old twin boys, 4-year-old boy. You know what? I'm telling you the ages they're about to be. The 2-year-old is correct. 3-year-old boy, 5-year-old boy, 7-year-old boy. Yes, we have a lot of boys, and I'm not done yet. I have 10-year-old twin girls. And the coolest part is they are born on the same day as my 2-year-old twin boys. So we have a set of identical twin boys and a set of identical twin girls that are born on the same day. So we have a quad birthday and it's amazing.
That's so fun.
It is so fun. And I have an 11-year-old girl who will be 12 in a week. I have a 14-year-old boy who will be 15 in a couple of weeks and a 16-and-a-half-year-old boy. So 7 boys, 3 girls.
That is a lot of boys.
Yes.
That's like a fun, that's like a lot of energy.
It's a lot of energy, and I was really, really grateful for how the Lord has grouped my kids so far because we've got this little kind of enclave of girls in the center that get to be each other's besties. And then we have the 2 oldest who are best friends and kind of can do the older boy things. And we've got this tiny boy gang of 5 in a row. Energy is, to put it lightly. Yeah.
I love it. It's so fun.
It is.
So the other thing I'm asking all of my guests to start us off is what is one thing that you want every parent to know?
I want every parent to know that God's word is true and reliable and profitable for reproof and growth and maturity and teaching children well. Like, it is not periphery. It is the handbook. Like, it's it.
I love that. I mean, that's what your whole thing is about. Your whole mission is about Christ-like motherhood, relying on Jesus, his true word, his absolute truth in your parenting. So I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you really challenge moms to shift their perspective from viewing parenting as something that's a burden and hard and something to like get through, to a privilege, something to survive, to something that's sacred and holy and enjoyable. And I think sometimes we just need someone to remind us that, because we can be so in the mess of every day that it's easy to forget. And you do not shy away from that challenge of reminding that to people. I love your motto, which is hard is not the same thing as bad. I just think that is so good. Can we just talk about that for a minute? Like, what does that mean in light of our call to Christ-like motherhood?
So I'm going to back up just a tiny bit to what you were saying, because you said you do such a good job of calling mothers out. And I just really want to make it clear I'm calling myself out.
Yes.
Like, I have bad mothering days. I have moments where I lose my temper. I have postpartum hormones that rage within me. I have times where motherhood definitely does not feel like a privilege. It feels like my kids are intentionally trying to personally attack my sanity. That, if you can relate to all those things, when I am speaking to the high and holy calling of motherhood as the Bible lays out, and the fact that just because something is hard does not mean that it doesn't benefit us and it's not for our good and God's glory, because it is so much of the time, doesn't mean that I always feel that way. And so you're going to hear me encourage you, but it's because I have been there and am still there. I'll get people that are like, this is easy for you to say because you have teenagers. I'm like, and also toddlers and also, 3-year-olds and everybody in between. And while I absolutely love the range of ages that I have, this is literally my favorite season of motherhood I've ever had, to be able to have teenagers that I can interact with on a very mature level, have snuggly little bitty guys that we can, carry around and treat like babies still. And then all the in between. I really enjoy that. It is a different kind of hard. It is more complicated. It stretches my brain in ways that having only little kids didn't. So I really feel like the hard is not the same thing as bad. It's not a one-time statement. It is a constantly evolving, seasonal thing that the Lord just doesn't ever let you rest with. But that's good because it grows you. So from a biblical perspective, I just really don't see, I see that it says, taste and see that the Lord is good. I see that every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights, in whom there is no change or shifting shadow. I see that we are graven on the Lord's palms. He delights over us with singing. We see all of this evidence that the Lord loves us and wants good things for us. But sometimes the road to the good things is bumpy, and we have to, I was going to say work for it, but that kind of sounds like a try-hard gospel. We have to trust the Lord to get us through it, instead of absolutely committing to this narrative that this stinks, I hate it, I'm just going to kind of zone out until it's over, and hopefully it'll be better when it is.
Yeah, I think that's so good. It's so easy for us to want to hold on to motherhood and control it on our own, but really what we have to do is hand it over to Jesus.
Amen.
That's where we're going to have our best parenting days. At least in my life, I found that my worst parenting days are when I'm trying to do it out of my own strength.
Right. And trying to control the outcome of everything, because we really aren't tasked with that. We are tasked with planting seeds. We are tasked with being faithful to disciple our kids and to pour God's word into them and to not shy away from the hard parts of training. But we're not tasked with the outcome. I think we are essential to the outcome, but we are not responsible for it. And so when we are trying to produce a result or trying to hit a mark, and our kids get in our way, so to speak, and we're not saying, Lord, what's your plan for my day? This is what I've got on the schedule, but how would you direct me? How are my kids being, quote, an inconvenience to me, actually a divine intervention in my own selfishness? When we are able to, because people are going to say, what does giving parenting to Jesus actually mean? That sounds very high-minded. Like, what is that? I think it looks like the nitty-gritty of saying, Lord, that didn't go at all like I wanted it to. I'm going to thank you anyway that we're all still here, that we survived. Everybody's got their arms and legs. It's nap time. I'm going to sit down with your word for 15 minutes and maybe have some dark chocolate and drink a bunch of water. And then I'm going to tackle those dishes and we're going to put on some praise music when the kids get up and we're going to try again. And you are sufficient for this. Like, just sometimes it's so simple, but it's different than what the world tells us we're supposed to do. That's for sure.
Yeah. God's mercies are new, not only every morning, but every moment.
That's right.
Every moment. So you have a lot in your house. I love that you talked about this loving the stage that you're in with toddlers to teenagers. I heard someone once say, who has a large family, she said, I can't imagine having a baby without a teenager and with teenager without a baby, because they just work together and bring each other joy when they need it.
They really do.
As a working mom, 2 of my goals for the new year are to take better care of myself and simplify. And one of the ways I'm doing that is with HelloFresh. There's a reason HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. They make it so simple. All I have to do is pick my meals and my delivery date, and all of the pre-portioned ingredients and step-by-step instructions come right to my door. That means less hassle, less wasted food, and they have health-forward options like over 30 calorie-smart and protein-smart recipes each week. The recipe cards are easy to follow and they're full of pictures, so it makes cooking with my kids really fun too. And we all know that when they are involved in the cooking, they're more likely to eat it, so everyone wins. We have a great deal for you right now because I know that mornings can be crazy as a parent. I often find myself forgetting breakfast or grabbing something really fast. But you can go to hellofresh.com/CPPodcastFree and use the code CPPodcastFree for free breakfast for life. That's 1 breakfast item per box while the subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at hellofresh.com/CPPodcastFree with the code CPPodcastFree. But it has to be overwhelming at times. And you talk in your book a little bit about, I remember there was a time in your book, M is for Mama, you're talking about you had 5 kids. So half the kids at the time. They were younger, you had newborn twins, and your husband was traveling, you were working, homeschooling, doing everything kind of at normal pace. And it was hard. And I've been there too. I only have 3 kids. I have 3 kids.
Yes, don't say only.
Yes, 3 kids. I am blessed with 3 children. And when they were a lot younger, my husband was in grad school every other weekend. And then once a week, he studied for grad school and he was traveling for work. And it just was a really hard time. And I remember being so overwhelmed all of the time with these little people who needed me so hands-on. And when I look back, there are a lot of sweet memories there.
Yeah.
But truthfully, it was really, really an overwhelming season in motherhood. And I think we each have to learn how to manage that in parenting, because every season brings unique challenges and opportunities. But how did you learn to deal with the overwhelm as your seasons have changed in parenting, from toddlers to teenagers and everything in between?
Everything in between. So I think that there is a little bit of an odd, to me, narrative that I see happen with motherhood specifically, which is that you are not supposed to acknowledge that you have gotten better at something or it's bragging. What I mean by that is there's this kind of like, we're all on this journey together. We're all on the same playing field. You're not better than I am. I'm not. And there is a lot of truth to that. Like, in the Lord's sight, we don't have more value because we have fewer or more children. We don't have more value because we have teenagers versus only babies. However, we do have more experience. And I think in almost every other professional capacity that we look at, we're going to look at somebody as a master electrician that's been doing it for 20 years. We're going to look at somebody that is a master teacher that's been teaching for 30 years. And yet we don't kind of give some credit to the amount of growth and maturity and knowledge that we glean in the profession of motherhood as we go along through these different seasons. So when people ask me what my hardest season of mothering was, it wasn't even those 5 little kids. That was really, really hard. Mentally for me, physically that was more difficult than 2 kids, but mentally for me, it was when I had 2 and under. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if anything I was doing was going to quote unquote work. They didn't wipe their own butts. They didn't, always sleep through the night. They didn't always eat the food that I gave them. They didn't, they didn't wipe their own noses. They couldn't talk very well. They couldn't buckle their own car seats. Like, it was just like, you talk about that just draining level of constantly being needed. So then when you kind of have moved through that stage several times, if you have several children, or you just, you've gotten through a couple of stages, you're like, interestingly enough, this same challenge from 3 years ago doesn't feel as overwhelming. Like, the Lord has stretched your capacity. He has given you more in your toolbox to tackle things that you really didn't have a clue about before. You have done trial and error. You've prayed through things. Your husband has, helped you to see wisdom, and you've helped him. And there's been this back and forth of parenting that grows you and stretches you. So while there are really busy weeks, like we literally just finished yesterday, people came to our house to do a video session for 5 hours, 6 hours, I think, for some B-roll for book trailers for my current book, Emma's for Mama, and for my upcoming book. And with 10 kids, and I had outfit changes lined up, and we, had food in the fridge specifically for bringing out for, pretending we were having dinner. And it was just a lot of prep. And we prayed over it a ton and prepped for it a ton. And I think I was having this expectation of it going like it would if, like in the past, when we've done some family photos where there's like 6 kids and they're all 8 and under, that kind of thing. And it's like squirrely all the way through. It was so...
We just took family photos, right? So yes.
It was so smooth. And that was the Lord's graciousness, honestly. It could have been a lot squirrelier than it was. But between prepping them really well and knowing kind of, we don't do this, we do this, we make sure the naps happen, we don't get that baby up until, we've just using kind of that gleaned wisdom, it went great. So I guess I would just really encourage moms to not judge any future hardship on the current overwhelm that you feel.
Yes.
It's so important not to make big decisions or big judgments about how hard something will be in the future based on how hard it is right now. Credit the fact that the Lord is growing you, and then apply those things in the future, and understand that whatever hard season you reach then will be different in the future as well. Like, stuff doesn't last forever. This too shall pass. That is so comforting.
Yeah. And our emotions are liars.
Oh, yes. Yes. The thing that your brain tells you and your heart tells you when you haven't had enough sleep or enough calories and your children are in hard phases may be true in the sense that this is hard is true, but it's not the true in the sense that this is all encompassing and defines you.
That is such good encouragement, especially for the new mom who has 1 or 2 kids. Like that first time you have a baby. I tell people all the time, my hardest transition was one kid. Because I remember I left the hospital and I was like, why did you let me take this baby home?
Why am I allowed to do this? Nobody trained me. I don't have a certificate.
Right. It's so overwhelming. And then it's so easy to look at someone like you and say, how does she do it with 10 and I can't even do it with 1? But that's what God has called you to do in this season, is be a mom of 10. And what God has maybe called this other mom to do in this season is be a mom of 1 newborn.
Exactly.
And you can't be the same person, because that's not true to who God has us to be.
Right. And God didn't give me 10 2-year-olds at once. That's important to realize. Like, people are picturing me with whatever age that they're struggling with times 10. And that's not the reality. And it's not anybody else's reality. Anytime we project our own struggles and kind of almost put a filter of our own struggles over someone else's reality, and we go, wait a minute, they're not struggling the same way I am. It's because they don't have the exact same struggles. And the Lord may have them at a different place of maturity, or a different place emotionally, or a different place with support from their family. And we have to say, okay, Lord, get my eyes right back on my lane again, because this is what you've given me. Exactly like you said, He has called me to be the mother of 1 child that is 6 months old and has colic. I'm going to deal with that to His glory in His strength. That's all I can do.
Yeah, that's so good. And we grow in parenting, and we learn as we go, and God prunes us. And I love that. That is really good truth that I hope someone listening can just cling to today. Really do. So as that mom of 1 may grow her family and adds more and more kids, let's talk for a second about siblings. Because I think you talk a lot about sibling relationships. And fighting. And every kid fights. I mean, that's part of the human relationship, right? We live in a broken world, and therefore conflict exists. And oftentimes with the people that we're closest with, which is often siblings. But practically, like, what are some things that parents can do to really like foster healthy relationships between siblings, and then also address fighting when it does come up?
Sure. So I think one of the most important things that you can do is make your home an enjoyable place to be, a place where your kids want to be. So that for us, I'm not saying when I say for us, I'm not saying therefore you must do this, because I am definitely not a prescriptive writer. I do not say this step, then this step, and if you skip that step, then go back and repeat the next one. I don't believe how it works. I think there are scriptural principles that apply. And one of them is, as much as it is up to you, be at peace with all men. And that includes your brothers and sisters. So if we know that that's the scriptural principle, then that is what we are striving for as parents, to model and to set up successful structures for. So creating a peaceful home for us looks like consistent rhythms, not strict schedules, but consistent rhythms that foster togetherness, that foster camaraderie, that foster working with each other instead of against each other, that foster inter-age relationships instead of like exclusive peer, like maybe plus or minus 1 year kind of thing, which can lead to cliquishness, that foster looking at siblings not as competition or maybe a way to impede your fun, but as future best friends, current best friends, but you may be working on that. But as future best friends, I always tell my kids that these friends you have in high school, my older kids, or middle school, we homeschool, but they have a homeschool co-op and they have kids their age that they love spending time with. These kids may or may not be in your future. The fact of the matter is they probably won't be. How many of us are intimately connected with people that we knew really well when we were 12? Some, but not many. And yet we hopefully are still intimately connected with our siblings. So some of the things that work well for us are family Bible reading in the morning and doing breakfast together, doing dinner together almost every single night, unless we have something very specifically that is at that same time.
Let's talk about that for a second. How do you get that done practically with like school and activities? You really do it almost every night. That's amazing.
Yes. I would say 5 nights out of the week. We are at this table together. So we don't choose to commit to activities on a large scale that take place during that time. So we do soccer, for example, for several of our younger kids, or we've done it for older kids too, but they've aged out. So we'll do like a community soccer league with 4 or 5 kids at a time in it. Well, it's 6 weeks and they have 1 practice a week and the game is on Saturday morning. So we have 1 night a week. And I think the practice is at 5:30. So we still can do dinner after that. I'll just prep everything ahead of time. My older boys are in a homeschool, are playing on a homeschool 6-man football team, and my older son can drive. Well, they have 1 practice in the evenings, and because it's homeschooling, the other practice is in the mornings. So we have chosen to do certain lifestyle things that keep those evenings free. And if something is consistently encroaching on that, it's a very serious decision to say yes, or we just say no.
Yeah. And that's the boundary that you've set up as a family. In our family, we don't have dinner 5 days a week together because we do have evening activities, but my husband and I both work from home. And so we're able to have breakfast together. So we just find something, again, we're both doing something where we're valuing our family, but it looks a little different between 2 different families.
And you have to decide as a family what your priorities are, what your non-negotiables are, and then be willing to stand on those even when society says you're stupid for doing so. Because there are so many cultural pressures to give your kids more and more and more activity. When we see that, when we looked out at the breakdown of the family that's happening, when we look at what busyness does to our cortisol levels, to our stress levels, to our ability to sleep well at night, to our ability to get good food, and really connect with people. When we look at what prioritizing screens, for example, over people does to children's brains and rewiring them not to have good interpersonal connections when they're on screens all the time, we can easily say, this is too overwhelming. I just don't even know how to handle it. Or we can say, Lord, we are sitting down and praying about what our non-negotiables are. Show us how you would have us pursue you as a family and foster these close relationships. And then you have to stick to it. Even if your neighbor thinks you're ridiculous, even if somebody else looks like they're thriving and they have a completely different schedule, you can say, no, I'm staying this course until the Lord tells me to do otherwise.
That's good. That's really good. So what are your other non-negotiables that you have as a family, or the other things that you do to continue to promote these relationships?
So we have 2 cleanup times together as a family, right after breakfast and then right after dinner. We turn on music.
Okay.
Everybody has their jobs. We do them together. It doesn't look like a family musical. We're not all dancing and singing, but there's some dancing and singing going on. I mean, I shy away from making it sound too, like I said, like song and dance or cartoony, but I think that fostering joy in your home is not that complicated. It can be hard when you have snarky attitudes or people that are in bad moods or you're exhausted, but it's not complicated. There are very simple things that you can do together to support each other and to feel like you're part of a team, to feel like you're a genuine contributor to your home rather than individual islands floating around feeling frustrated when somebody bumps into your island, do not allow screens out of public areas. So our older kids sort of kind of have phones in that they have Apple Watches that they use to text me, because I also have an Apple Watch, and they keep their phones in a common area. And so then they don't get on the internet with them. They don't watch videos with them. They have, a very limited group of people that they can correspond with freely. But we have told them we have full access to your phones. They're not really your phones. While you are a minor in our homes, it is our responsibility to keep you as safe technologically as possible. And I'm focusing on that because I feel like that's a big isolator and a big draw. And we see that as adults. When things are pinging and glowing and demanding our attention, we can get so focused on our faces plastered to a screen, and we're ignoring our kids, mom, over and over again before we even realize what we've done. So we keep screens communal instead of individual in rooms, which I think helps a ton. And we do. We play lots of games together. We play Foursquare outside. We play Nerds, which is like speed solitaire, group speed solitaire. It's crazy and so much fun. We play Spoons. Like, we try to find things that are as inner age as possible. So when we play Nerds, for example, my 5-year-old plays, and then I play. So we all, and does he win? No, but he has a blast, and read alouds. We love read alouds. I read aloud to my kids a lot, and they love it. So that's a very community oriented thing. And then they talk about the books that we've read. Hey, when he said that in this, and remember that, and correct each other. No, that was another one. And so it gives them a family culture to anchor themselves to, so that the people that they identify with the most closely are their own family, instead of the cultural references being primarily with peers or the world.
Yeah. So my husband and I, we are both really good friends I have 2 sisters. He has 1 brother. We are very good friends with all of them. So our kids see this played out in real life and in real time all the time. And oftentimes when my kids are fighting, I'll say, you really need to remember the relationship that you want long-term with your siblings, and I have them ask themselves, is what you're doing now building up your relationship or damaging your relationship?
That's a fantastic question.
Because I think, the way our kids treat their siblings is practice for the future, and not just for when they're adults and want to be friends with each other, but they have to go have other friends and roommates and eventually a spouse and their own kids. So I think that's just really important to foster that relationship now. Abbie, I have had just a lovely time with you. Thank you so much for joining us. I feel like you have so much wisdom to share and so much encouragement, and I really, really appreciate everything that you've had to say today. Before we go, can you tell us where we can find you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have blogged for almost a dozen years at msformama.net. I think you can get there with msformama.com if you forget the net part. And I microblog a whole lot over at Instagram at m.is.for.mama. You can sign up for my email newsletter on my blog at msformama.net, and I'm also on Facebook.
And where can we find your book?
It's sold most places. Books are sold: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, christianbook.com, Sam's. Like there's some random places, but yeah, most places you can find a book, it's sold.
Great. Thank you so much. I just appreciate your vulnerability and your challenge for us to all just take on this holy role of mama in such a graceful and joyful way.
That's really encouraging to me. I appreciate that. It was such a joy to talk to you, Steph.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on.
You're welcome.
I hope that you were blessed by my conversation with Abbie today. I personally loved what she said about growing and learning throughout our parenting. You know that we will get better with practice, and that's a good thing. When we rely on Jesus and trust Him with our kids, He will give us what we need. If you want more information about Abbie, I will include that all in the show notes for you. Thank you for joining us. May God bless you this week as you parent your kids with love and purpose through His strength. Lean on Jesus and His wisdom, and you will grow in experience, patience, and confidence in your parenting. Thank you so much for listening to the Christian Parenting Podcast. If you haven't subscribed, you can do that now, and that way you won't miss an episode. You can connect with us on Instagram at christianparenting_org and see more resources at christianparenting.org. And if you're a mom raising daughters, we have the perfect course for you. Visit cpguides.org to learn more about our Helping Moms Raise Confident Daughters online courses. And lastly, if you have enjoyed this podcast or other Christian parenting resources, please consider donating to this ministry. Visit christianparenting.org and click the donate button. Christian Parenting is 100% donor funded, and none of this would be possible without your help. We are so grateful for you. You're amazing. God bless you.